Hello and welcome to Window on the World. I'm your host, JJ Ramos. Every year, nearly 200,000 American students participate in study abroad programs. As a part of its global mission, MSSU always makes sure to encourage its students to join in on the fun. But what is the application process like? What can a student expect when they are abroad? What is the cost? And what do you gain? To answer these questions and more, I have with me today's guest and my friend, Elijah Brown, who spent last autumn studying at the University of Malaga in Spain. Elijah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you back. It was quite a jarring experience not having you around. So how did you first hear about the study abroad program here at MSSU?
So I actually had switched my career plan to be an English second language teacher. And I actually was introduced to the idea through through the faculty members here at MSSU. There was Ryan Orcutt, who was formerly working here at the time, and he had he worked in Korea and taught English there for a few years, and he told me that it was an unforgettable experience and stuff like that, and just being abroad and everything. So he suggested that I should do a study abroad semester. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to have that experience of leaving the country and seeing what it's like. And so I decided I might as well do it. And so.
Well, wonderful. So how difficult was it to get into the application process?
So the application process was through the ISEP program, and it's pretty clear cut, not too complicated initially. You know, you choose the schools that you would prefer to go to, and they select based on that pool of what you chose for countries and universities and such. And so I actually got into the first one I chose. My number one pick was Malaga, Spain. And that part was pretty easy. There was a fee that you had to pay for the process and everything. And but as far as the application process went, it was very simple. I think the difficult part was the visa process, which can be a little bit
So
taxing.
I've heard. Overall, would you say that there was financial aid to be of assistance to you during the process?
Yeah, so the nice thing about it is through the ISEP exchange program, you're actually paying the same tuition you do here at MSSU. And so there's no like additional cost as far as that goes. And they also give you a study abroad travel grant, which helps you pay for your flight. And for my flight, it actually covered the entire flight process. So it was very beneficial. And if you get, scholarships, stuff from your FAFSA, I mean, it's something you should definitely consider. So,
As for the visa process, how much of a hassle was that?
so the visa process can be very stressful. Honestly, I mean, the thing is you have to actually go to a different city for a lot of these places, and it depends on which country you go to. But for Spain, for example, if you want to go there and you're living as a resident of Missouri, you have to go to Chicago. And luckily for me, my family is around that area, living in Michigan and Indiana and stuff. But not everybody has that, and so a lot of people I know who had to go to Chicago will have to take a flight, and stay there at a hotel or something like that, and then come back, which can be expensive. But the visa application process can be a little bit complicated and uncertain at times. Whenever you apply to that appointment, in-person appointment online, you have to do it a few months ahead of time to make sure that there are open slots. And so it's just a lot of planning ahead you have to do, and you have to just have like that plan kind of set in stone because otherwise it can some problems could arise later.
Well, I'm glad that you stuck with it, and it did pay off. So why Spain, of all countries in the world?
Well, I had been learning Spanish for years now, and I figured what better way to, finally obtain better fluency at my level than to go to a Spanish-speaking country, which it did certainly pay off. That's for sure. And now at this point, I suggest if there's a language that you're learning or that you want to learn, just go to the country and study there. Study for 6 months, even a year if you want to. If you really want to acquire that language, that's the best way to do it. And so that was one of the biggest reasons, but also going to Europe it's so easy to travel to other places. The public transport is very easy. You don't need a car anywhere basically, as long as you're living in the city and stuff like that. And you can go somewhere by train, by bus. You can fly to other countries. It's very easy.
So when you finally landed, was there any much of a culture shock that you experienced?
So um, it was, to me, a lot of just like minor things. So like for example, you walk through the streets and you're probably gonna smell some cigarette smoke quite a bit. A lot of people there do that, and you just don't see it nearly as much here, or at least in Joplin. Another one was the fact that people don't smile at you. They're not, and it's not that they're rude. It's not in a rude way, but they, they're about their business. And I think it's something about it is like refreshing in a way. You don't get a superficial sense anywhere. It's more of an authentic experience whenever it comes to interacting with people. When you're, walking the streets or in a restaurant or getting a service in a store or anything like that. And so.
So what was it like in the day-to-day walking around a country up until then you'd never been into? I assume, was this your first time out of the country?
Yeah, it was my first time leaving the United States. And actually, I did not struggle too much with my way of getting around. I kind of got my bearings a little bit. The nice thing about Malaga is it's a big city, but it's very condensed. So it's very populated, but you can walk across a good portion of the city within an hour. And that's what a lot of people actually would do. Whenever and nightlife is big in Spain, especially Malaga, and the people, going home, after the bus routes closed and the transit closed, they would just walk back to their flats, and they'd be back within, it could be as little as 10 minutes or it could be as much as an hour, but people don't have as much of an issue, and it's easy. It's so easy to find your way in Malaga. I mean, it was very there was no struggle there. So.
Well, so you were there studying abroad at the University of Malaga. What was your major officially when you were there?
So whenever I was there, I was actually an English studies major because I want to teach English as a second language, and so that was the department that they put me in, and so I had to take a few classes just around that general area, and the classes themselves were different, which is another kind of culture shock in that regard. The classes, I would say, were a little bit more difficult, especially towards the end of the semester.
So, in what ways were they different, and why were they more difficult than what we are used to here in the States?
So, for example, here, usually in classes in university, you regularly take exams. Depending on the class that you're taking, you could have, 3 in a semester or 5 in a semester. And when you are studying in Spain, or when I studied in Malaga, we didn't really have homework. Some of the classes, you had one midterm exam, but these things don't really count towards your main grade. The thing that counts towards your main grade is the final exam, and it's a cumulative exam. And one thing that was difficult about it is, I think, especially for a lot of the foreign exchange students, when they're focused on experiencing the country that they're in, they're not always going to be as focused on their studies, rather than going and experiencing things, the community that they're in, or going and visiting other countries. And so when the end of the semester comes, they're like grinding to study, and so that can turn out to be a little bit of a difficulty whenever you are coming about the final exams, and so that can be difficult.
So, one of the most important things in finding belonging on a college campus is having a sense of community. Did you find it hard at all or difficult to make friends while you were overseas?
Not at all, actually. So when I initially got there, I stayed in a hostel for about a week, and the nice thing about that was you are surrounded by other people who are traveling, and they want to speak to you. They want to talk to you, and they want to make friends with you. And so I made some friends while I was in the hostel and stuff like that, and hung out with them. But once the university started, there was a group. It's kind of like a travel entertainment agency called Malaga South Experience, or MSE, and they reach out to university students, mainly Erasmus students, which are the foreign exchange students that come to the university, and they do a lot of activities. They have beach days, they travel to other cities around the Andalusia region of Spain, and they also do some nightlife activities. There was one where there was speed friending, so it was very easy to make friends, even if it wasn't necessarily within the Spanish community, but you were making a lot of friends who were in the same situation as you as foreigners. But also the Spanish people in the community were very welcoming and very open to speaking with us as foreign exchange students.
So this MSE company, they provided you networking opportunities, not only with people from around the area and not only opportunities to travel around the area, but also the ability to socialize with people from countries other than Spain and America.
Yes, exactly. I was actually one of the very few Americans that was even around. There was one other American that I knew from North Carolina. And we actually didn't even interact with each other very much throughout the entirety of the semester because we wanted to make friends with people from other countries and experience, their lives and their cultures and learn about them. And so it was a very unique experience, being surrounded by these people who have different thoughts, different opinions, different traditions, different lives as a whole than you, and but it was a very enriching experience meeting every single one of them.
So I'm very curious. You were able to socialize with a good amount of other foreign exchange students. Did any of them go on this study abroad trip without knowing how to speak Spanish beforehand?
Yes, so actually I had I suppose a main group of friends who there was two from Lithuania, two from Romania, and two from Poland. And so actually what was crazy about it was my two friends from Lithuania did not speak Spanish. They didn't speak any at all, actually, and they couldn't understand it, and they were still there. And they managed to, get around and stuff like that, but there were times where I had to help them, and they were like, Elijah, like, what is he saying? Can you ask this person this? And, so a few of us could, I think about half of us could, or at least, like, understand Spanish, and the other half could not. And so, but, they made their way. They never had too much of an issue being in Malaga because a lot of the people, especially in the center of the city, will speak English, which is pretty convenient. So if you don't know Spanish or a language, I think as far as Europe goes, don't let it hold you back from, taking a study abroad trip. Practice what you need to, and then just go for it.
So you were treated very hospitably. How well did the locals treat you?
So there were the majority of them were very, very kind. I think just like any other country, there's the people who aren't always who may look at you as a foreigner and be like, oh, and not have that much interest of speaking with you. They have their own groups, their own people, and not everybody will have that interest. But the majority of the interactions that I had with the locals were very positive. And that wasn't just in Spain, that was in other countries I had went to as well.
So what was the food like? Did any dishes stand out to you and become favorites?
So yeah, well, as far as the food and the cuisine goes, one thing that I think was different overall different was the schedule. So they eat everything later, and the breakfast is very light, the lunch is very heavy, and the dinner's a little bit lighter, but not as light as the breakfast. So it's a different quantity of what you eat, and then when you're eating dinner at 9 p.m., it's a little bit it just feels a little bit weird sometimes, and then you're just ready to go to bed right after. But I'd say like one of the things that stood out to me the most was this breakfast dish, and I'd never even thought that I would eat anything like this, but it was literally just a bottom half of a piece of bread, like baguette, and some oil, some shredded tomatoes, and some Iberian ham, and you just eat it, and it's very rich, but also savory at the same time, and it's very good. I would recommend. Like I had it, I think almost too much when I first got there. I just went to the same place and had that, but it's very good, and so that was probably my favorite thing, and one of the things that stood out to me. That and also the seafood. I went to northern Spain in the Galicia region, and it had some of the best seafood I had in my life. And these aren't for everybody, but there's like octopus, squid, mussels that you put some lemon juice on. But what's so interesting about them is there's people who make their money by breeding these mussels on ropes that they have in the sea. And it's like a business for them. And I guess they make a lot of money doing it. But I can see why. You have to try them. If even if you're not a fan of seafood, you have to try it.
As a personal enjoyer of mussels, I thank them for their service.
Yeah.
So you were able to travel quite a lot all over Spain. How easy was it to get around? I know you've talked about the public transit. Do you think you could go more into detail about that?
So as far as like going to other places, other cities, there's big train stations, right? Like that you can go to a bunch of different cities like from Malaga to Madrid. It does take a little bit longer. The process is a little bit slower than flying, but if you're looking to like kind of just like see the landscape as you're going through a train, I would recommend it. But the nearby cities, it's very easy to go either by train or by bus. And I think the neighboring cities, most people will take a bus to go to them, and it's very easy. I mean, there's so many cities that you can go to with a lot of interesting things that are just within an hour's reach. And I think that's one of the highlights about where I was that so many things were so close. And there was just a lot of opportunity when it came to travel and seeing such amazing historical things that you probably wouldn't get to see around this area or really anywhere in the United States.
So what are some of the historical things and like bits of culture that you were able to take in on your travels while you were over there?
So as far as like being in Malaga, that was actually like where Pablo Picasso grew up. And so he has his own museum there. There's a bunch of statues that you can find around with him. There's also a neighboring city called Nerja, and it has the Balcón de Europa, and it's like the balcony of Europe, and it's this very attractive tourist site. You see like a long stretch of beach, and it's a great place for pictures. And the small city is just it's a very rich city with a lot of just smaller things to offer. And so, but also in the Galicia region up to the north, there's actually the oldest operating lighthouse in the world. And so I got to see that and take some pictures of that. It was really, I mean, sitting there and thinking that I'm in an area that's connected to such an old part of the world. It's such an amazing feeling. And so having that opportunity to be there, I think was just very, very, it was very fulfilling for me. And, you catch the travel bug after going.
So you were doing quite a lot while you weren't in classes and studying.
Mm-hmm.
Any other special experiences that you had that while you were in Malaga that you wish to discuss?
So as far as like the my experience in Spain specifically, or in Malaga, I think really the biggest um, thing or the most enriching experience overall was being able to connect with my new friends that I had made. Whenever I came to Malaga initially, my first day, nobody knew who I was. And I was like, man, I'm going to be in my mysterious era. Nobody's going to know who I am. I'm just going to be this guy, and that's going to be that. And I'm just going to enjoy my time. That did not end up being the case. And so, but I don't regret it at all, because the amount of people I met from just about every country in Europe, I I wouldn't take back any moment being with them. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you'll take from studying abroad. Like, you can see all these places, and you can do all these things, but I think the biggest thing is the people that you're going to meet and the connections that you're going to make with people, and the things that you'll learn specifically from those people. And I think that's like the biggest part about my experience in Malaga was those friends that I made.
So, other than the northern Spanish region, was there anywhere else that you traveled to during your stay over there?
So I actually went to Morocco, which was actually, I think, the highlight of my experience abroad. And I didn't plan on doing this, but whenever I was just hanging out with my friends, one of them pulled out their phones and said, "Hey, like, there's a trip to Morocco that MSE is doing. We should go. It's only 300 euros." And I was like, "Okay, yeah. Like, how long are we there?" And they're like, "Okay, so we're there for 5 days. We go and we see a bunch of different cities, and we get to go to the Sahara Desert, and we get to ride camels, and our breakfast is included and our dinner's included. We only have to pay for our lunches." And I was sitting here and I was like, that sounds like a pretty good deal. And so we bought the tickets, and we went, and it was an absolutely amazing experience, um, with the food, with the locals, with the experience of being in the Sahara Desert, in a campsite under the stars and seeing the sunset in the morning. It was such an amazing experience, an unforgettable one actually. And so, anyone who's considering going to Morocco, just do it. Just do it.
So only 300 euros got you a pretty close to all-inclusive package to travel to Morocco. That is incredible.
Yes.
So the ability to travel in Europe and also around the Mediterranean is fairly affordable compared to what it is here in the States, I take it.
Yes, way easier, way more affordable, and so, and even when you go to these other countries, it's way more affordable. For example, like, when you're in the tourist group and the guide is taking you to these places or whatever, right? Like, those things are going to be more expensive because they're catered. Those places are businesses that are catered towards tourists. But when you go through the like actual city part and you just stop by a shop and you get something for like 200 dirham, which is like 2 euros, and it's like, it's so easy and it's so cheap, and and you get like these nice quality things, and the people are very hospitable. I mean, they're so ready to share their culture with you, and also to learn about you. And so that was also another thing that I was like, wow, this is a really nice place to be, or at least this is what made my experience really good.
So overall, you had a absolutely fantastic experience, I take it. Do you have any advice or final thoughts that you want to give to people that are considering looking at study abroad programs?
So my advice to people who are wanting to study abroad or who are just considering it, just don't let the fear of being in a new place by yourself scare you. You'll get through it. You'll get through it, and it'll be worth it. You just have to take the first step, and then you're there. I mean, all the stuff that I went through with the stress of the visa process, the few payments that you have to make through the application process, that sort of thing, like, it was all worth it. I don't think that there's enough of a reason not to go and experience a different part of the world and, see a different culture and give you more insight on, things that are going on outside of our country or our environment, because there's a lot. And so, to summarize, just do it. Just go.
Well, Elijah, it has been an absolute privilege to have you on today.
Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Window on the World. I'm your host, JJ Ramos. Thanks for watching.